This one's an easy intro for those that have been doing managed services for a while. Michael George is the CEO of Syncro, which he joined in February of 2024. He was the CEO of Continuum from 2011 to 2019 when it was acquired by ConnectWide. He's held other roles, and he talks to me today about why he joined and where the organization is going on this bonus episode of The Business of Tech. With as many breaches and security concerns as I report in this show, it should be obvious that cybersecurity is not just about technology, but also the human expertise needed to interpret and respond to complex threats. Huntress is focused on elevating SMBs and MSPs around the world. Huntress has a suite of fully managed cybersecurity solutions powered by a 24/7 human-led SOC, dedicated to continuous monitoring, expert investigation, and rapid response. And the proof is the execution. Huntress is the #1 rated EDR for SMBs on G2. Want to know more about the platform? Visit huntress.com/MSP radio to learn more. Well, Michael, thanks for joining me. I'm super excited to have you today.
Dave, I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be with you. So thank you.
And this is fun because we've known one another for a while now, at times where my MSP worked with the precursor to Continuum. We've been competitors too. Now I'm over on the analyst side. It's been fun to chat. But I want to ask, because I think I'm going to start off with just really the headline. You have recently joined Synchro as the CEO. And as the analyst, when I'm trying to understand what the adventure is, what the big challenge is, I took a look and I say, well, back at a MSP platform company, I don't understand why, because I haven't gotten in your head. What's different? What brought you back for this adventure?
You know, it's a terrific question, because if you look at my career, and I'm grateful. I've had a really extraordinary career, but I have never done the same thing twice, including never even been in the same sort of category twice. And I actually think so much has changed. It's not even the same category anymore. So and we'll talk a little bit about that for sure. What's interesting is, if you think about, and as you know, we knew each other I joined Continuum. I created Continuum from an acquisition of the assets out of Zenith. And, you and I crossed paths back then because you were a customer of ours. You were a partner of ours in the MSP space, and a very successful one at that. And so you knew how to benefit from the tools and the platform that we provided. We were at the time solving fundamentally the same challenges that the market faces today, but in a very, very different dimension. The thing that drives the whole MSP market is the same thing that actually challenges it. There has been a digital transformation underway now for at least 2 decades. The internet has been the most recent, digital tectonic shift in the world, and has created now an $11 trillion digital economy. And it's a gold rush, and everybody has been rushing at for a long time, as you know. And it has created a skills gap, right? Everybody's in this movement for this digital transformation. What we did at Continuum, Dave, as you well know, is we closed the skills gap by very cleverly taking something that the enterprise had figured out and had been doing for about a decade very, very successfully. And we brought it into the small, medium business market through the MSP channel. And that was to take an offshore model, right? We had a NOC, a SOC, and a help desk operation in low cost economies, India principally, and the Philippines. And we packaged that into an integrated services delivery model into our technology platform, enabling our MSP partners, again, to close the skills gap on an economic basis that would benefit them so that they could grow, expand, get new customers, and not have to linearly hire IT people to solve the IT problem that they were solving for the businesses that they were in. So it was really very, I think you'll agree, maybe you could speak to it in your own successful journey, with us. because I know you got acquired and it was a great run for you, and then you jumped over onto the vendor side. So you've got both perspectives down cold. But it was a very clever way to close that skills gap. What's changed is really two things. The private equity world entered this category back, candidly, when Summit Partners funded Continuum, and then Kaseya, and then Enable, and you know the whole journey, and I think most people do. And if you look at and understand the capital markets and the asset classes, private equity has two different cycles. And the first is value creation, and the second is value extraction. When we were with Summit Partners, frankly, they're a growth firm. They're an outstanding firm to be funding these companies because we were on the value creation side of the equation, investing in, being innovative. We started with just this RMM. When we expanded the platform into BDR, we made an acquisition, and then we acquired Carver, and we were the first to really launch. We did a bet the company strategy on security, and we brought security to the market. As you know, when everybody thought in the small to medium business market, it was not a small to medium business problem. So we did that. We brought SentinelOne in to the industry, and I mean, look at what it looks like today. I say no more, and it put Continuum in the hypergrowth mode that it was in, and that ultimately had it being acquired by ConnectWise. It was 2019. It was an 8-year journey for me, and I loved, every bit of it. It was a really extraordinary thing, and I'm grateful for all the people that were a part of that journey. It was really extraordinary. Because, I stepped out, and then I didn't think I was going to, come back in. But when the companies, the leaders, ended up on the other side, the value extraction side with private equity companies, and we all know what ConnectWise looks like today. Kaseya's amalgamate. It was a full acquisition strategy and an amalgamation of assets that don't really belong together, and then Enable's, crushed under being a publicly traded company in a small cap environment's an impossible. Nobody's investing in innovation, and they're on the wrong side of that equation. So that's number one. There's a market condition, and the other is just like when we work that the internet has had in the world in creating a digital economy, that AI has a new set of dynamics around it that is going to completely transform this market. I'm going to do everything I can to not say AI anymore and use the term automation, because nobody really cares about what the underlying technology is, and they shouldn't. What they should care about is what's the impact to the MSP that makes it beneficial. And so the reason I rejoined this category is it has changed exponentially in those two dimensions. It is a replacement market opportunity because the three leaders in it are on 15 to 30-year-old technology that's brittle, and they're not innovating, and they're owned by a set of asset classes that is not going to invest in it anymore, and everybody knows that and are leading off of those environments. But the other is that there is a tectonic shift underway, and all of the things that we did at Continuum, Dave, by bringing an offshore model into the equation, we're bringing in the form of automation using these underlying AI technologies. And and Synchro, I had a lot of opportunity. I was invited into a lot of places, and I'm so grateful that Synchro was one of them. And I was very deliberate about choosing that as a technology platform. It's a cloud native, it's the next generation of technology, and it's with a financial partner that wants to invest and innovate and completely disrupt this industry using the technologies that we just talked about. So I'm sorry if that's long-winded, but I hope it explains and answers your question about A, why am I back? And B, what I am back for.
So since my follow-on question was what's different about the market, and you've answered that, you kind of got two questions for one in that one. Now, you said something that I wanted double click a little bit on, which is this, because you were correct in saying you purchased the assets of Zenith Infotech. And it's an interesting, you're very deliberate there. And I appreciate that, because one of the true interesting things that happened then is that asset that was Zenith Infotech was created under very unique circumstances, right? It was created by an investment by an organization, by Zenith Infotech itself. It raised funds. It actually went bankrupt, and its assets were sold, allowing for the creation of a very unique asset that you were then able to leverage. And I thought a lot about what is the asset creation and competitive differentiation. Help tell me a little bit more about how that parallel might fit here and what Synchro's kind of unique part that intrigues you is.
I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. You're going to see us, and I'm delighted to get back together with you again later this year. But in Q3 of this year, going to be relaunching the company around some technology initiatives that are transformational for the business. And I don't want to get caught in having everybody sort of wait to see what that looks like, because we are incrementally already releasing elements of what we're going to be relaunching the company around later this year. As I said, at the heart of what we're doing is really perhaps two elements. Again, the leveraging of AI in a way that's very unique from the way anybody else has been approaching it in this category to date, Dave. And since you're more of a technologist than I am, I will tell you that we are, people are today using ChatGPT, for instance, and declaring a position with AI. And what they're really doing is adding it. And I'm not criticizing it. I'm just sharing with you sort of the difference between our approach to solving these challenges by saying what they're doing is they're taking their existing processes and they're adding ChatGPT to an existing process. What I've done, and as you can imagine, when Wise acquired Continuum, I'm not sure they fully understood some of the underlying assets that they acquired. And so the team that built our automation into what we were doing at Continuum all left, and they have joined me here. I have the core engineering and AI team that we have Continuum are now part of the Synchro journey. And what we've done is broken down and are leveraging AI at a traditional AI level. We're not using ChatGPT, Dave. We're actually working on a processing level, and we're using it in its traditional native state. And we're incorporating it into literally every aspect of our product. We're using the large, language models, and we're building AI natively into our product. That's very different than plugging ChatGPT, as you know, onto an existing process. We've re-engineered the process. And again, Synchro architecture, a cloud-native architecture, was built and born in the cloud. So it's very different than trying to re-architect something. It was an architecture built for this environment that is giving us an opportunity to do things that I'll jump to the finish line and then just give you a quick look back on it. But that is, given the matter is, and I love, in the image that you're in this podcast, you've got computers that had floppy drives, and you've got, in the history, I'll remind us all that from Leonardo da Vinci designs of flight, it took, centuries to have, the Wright brothers fly an airplane. But from that moment in time, it only took 66 years before we put a man on the moon. That is good. So think about that, right? The acceleration and we're in that same parabolic acceleration curve of technology in and around automation. And the ultimate goal, candidly, is that as computers, Dave, are far better at solving computer problems than humans are. And there is a level of autonomic computing that is computers can fix and remediate and, very preventatively remediate problems before they emerge into things that show up and manifest themselves, to slow down systems, to force disk defrag, to prioritize all of that stuff. And computers are better at it than human beings. And so what we're doing is moving the ability to automate up closer to the edge of the remediation process and getting in front of it and preventatively, remediating things before they emerge. And so anyway, that's, so think about autonomic computing and work your way backwards. And now think of us as the company that's going to bring that level of automation into, the biggest challenges for MSPs today, so that all that rote work and everything else is now out of the system. All that noise is out of the system, where the technician doesn't eliminate the technician. What it does is it elevates our technicians to doing higher value work. Because and you ask them, they spend so much time just sort of digging around into very rote elements of remediation. And they're doing it once that stuff, already shows up. It shows up in an alert or a complaint or an email or a ticket. And what we're doing is we're remediating those things before, on a preventative basis, before they ever emerge. So it'll give that. So anyway, that's the mission. This is a very mission-driven company. People join our mission because they're here to again, close that skills gap, use automation to improve the value of the way technicians are using their time, and continue on the digital transformation for their customers. So anyway, I could go on about it because I love this category and I love, but that's what we're doing, and that's what I'm here for. And that's what you're going to see the next version, the reemergence of Synchro solve for.
Oh, I welcome you back to tell me more when you have something to do it. Now, I want to get your insight, particularly as a business leader, because this is a category actually that Synchro has been a leader in, and I've started talking about again, and I want to get your take on this as a differentiator. So Synchro actually was a leader in pricing changes by moving to the per user pricing as an early move, right? So very disruptive to think about pricing. Pricing's been top of mind because there's been a recent set of announcements about disruptive pricing in the MSP market. And I'm alluding to Kaseya's big piece. I don't need you to weigh in on Kaseya. Instead, what I actually want to hear from you is your take on how you think about pricing as a differentiator, particularly being at an organization that has previously differentiated on price.
Look, I commend anybody who's trying to use whatever they can, to further their cause in the market. The fact of the matter is that if you think about how MSPs bill for their services, they're typically doing it on a per employee basis. They're not doing it on a per device basis. What they're doing is using the calculus that says that there are approximately 2.7 devices in the hands of every worker in the workforce in first world economies. And that's where MSPs live. That's where they make their living. So that's really sort of the math that people use. And there's always been calculation of how much can I charge and how much do I pay? And so there's been an alignment. Again, the alignment's been on an endpoint basis and not on an employee basis traditionally. Use what you're going to see in the next generation of, and pricing is only one element of it, but the next generation of technologies, Dave, that really disrupt this market is going to approach the marketplace in a very different way. It's not going to be on a per endpoint basis. It is most likely going to be on a user basis, because users have more than devices. They also have things like policies. And so, again, we live in a very Microsoft-centric world. And anybody who's paying attention needs to pay attention. Of course, Microsoft, I think the new leadership there and the things that they are doing are extraordinary. I mean, they made an $18 billion investment in OpenAI, clearly indexing in on AI because they understand, and we live in a Microsoft OS, right? So pay attention on the AI front. Number one, and number two is also pay attention to tenant and policy management in and around that world. And so the next big shift you'll see from a pricing perspective is one that is likely to move more toward a per employee, because that's the way MSPs charge anyway. And that is the way the vendors, the people that are providing the tools and technologies thinking about, pricing for their for their MSP partners. And I will tell you directionally, our goal is to get the cost per, at the ratio of device, now employee, technician to be the best on the planet, right? We're trying to enable our the technicians of our MSPs to become like a 10x tech. And, instead of having 125 or 150 devices, which might, calibrate down into, some number of employees, recalibrate that ratio and know that the number of devices and then therefore the number of employees will be exponentially higher using the Synchro technology, use with any other platform. And there will be, when we relaunch ourselves, Dave, we are going to launch we'll call it an automation index. I don't know exactly how we're going to frame it. Call it the Pepsi challenge for that matter. We will use up against any vendor in this industry, and we will provide the highest amount of automation to enable the technicians in our MSP partner environment to have the best ratio of technician to employee, if that's the way it's priced, or by device on the planet.
So, Michael, I'm going to ask, you're looking at this space, you've got lots of stuff you're working on. What do you think the biggest headwind and challenge in 2024 for the managed services space? Because you've alluded to a bunch of different things and pressures of the past, but what's the one now that you think the most about for this?
I think it's the same skills gap problem that they've been trying to face. Again, the digital transformation of these first world economies is not over. And in fact, it's gotten even more complex. Now people are like, with Office 365, right, moving into the cloud, and you've got Azure. Most of the applications people are working on are all cloud-based and everything else. So we have a more complex digital environment that managed service providers are working in today than they ever have before, right? There are these, hybrid cloud premise, application, device and everything else, and in a remote world, right? The COVID just completely disrupted people, and where everybody was investing in things behind the firewall and on premise, COVID came in, pushed everybody out, and the internet became the new network. So, right, that is the new network. And so all that money that went into protecting, so you have a very, very complex digital environment that MSPs are trying to manage and support with a very distributed, workforce. And security is going to persist. Again, nobody ever thought that, security was going to be a small to medium business problem until the invention of ransomware. And, again, this is old news now, but the issue around security is going to get worse and not better. It is technically one of the most unsolvable problems, that our digital economy faces. And so it's going to be how many security experts are there in all the different aspects of security that you need to be an expert in today, right? It's not just sort of a firewall or a device. It's applications. It's everything. You have this whole digital ether now that is, the attack surface is for, so anything people can do is simplify this very, very complex digital environment and also secure it. And I think securing it, MSPs should be thinking security first in their posture and their approach to how they are, managing these digital environments today. So again, a little long-winded, but if you break that down, it's a combination of a skills gap, in particular around sort of security, and a very, very complex digital environment that is, going to be continuously under attack, and hard to maintain and hard to support and everything else. So that's a complex challenge, and that's a 2024, 2025, and probably a 2026 challenge. Not just.
I feel like we'll be at security for a while. Michael, I really appreciate you joining me and diving in and answering these questions. And I look forward to hearing from you when you've got those other things to announce.
Dave, really grateful to be reconnected with you again, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your audience. Thank you.
This has been fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Today's episode is supported by CoreView. Your customers need your Microsoft 365 expertise, and CoreView has the only M365 management platform designed for MSPs. Manage hundreds of tenants, automate manual tasks, and monitor compliance, all while intelligently comparing to the baseline. With a no-code control approach, CoreView revolutionizes your Microsoft 365 administration. This powerful platform enables automatic reporting and remediation, ensuring optimal performance and security. The best part? You achieve this high level of service without the need for a large workforce, allowing you to focus on growing your business through efficiency. Want to know more? Visit coreview.com/MSP and find out more. The Business of Tech is written and produced by me, Dave Sobel, under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you like the content, please make sure to hit that like button and follow or subscribe. It's free and easy and the best way to support the show and help us grow. You can also check out our Patreon, where you can join the Business of Tech community at patreon.com/MSP Radio, or buy our Why Do We Care merch at businessof.tech. Finally, if you're interested in advertising on the show, visit mspradio.com/engage. Once again, thanks for listening to me, and I will talk to you again on our next episode of The Business of Tech.
Part of the MSP Radio Network.